Is Pakistan confronting a security emergency or the consequences of a long-ignored political crisis? This week, Pakistan's military says it's crushed one of the most coordinated waves of violence in years after the attacks by the Baloch Liberation Army. Civilians were killed, critical infrastructure was targeted, and Islamabad was quick to blame foreign interference. India is backing what it calls a terrorist organization. I'm Adijan Ayandar, and today's newsmaker is Pakistan's Balochistan problem. The violence erupted just days after Pakistan launched a military operation in Balochistan and shortly before separatist fighters carried out coordinated attacks on schools, banks, and markets, even reaching the provincial capital of Quetta. Islamabad insists the group is acting as an Indian proxy, a charge that New Delhi flatly denies. But the unrest comes at a sensitive period. Balochistan sits at the heart of Pakistan's economic ambitions. It is home to vast mineral deposits, China's strategic Gwadar port, and a new U.S.-backed mining deal worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Here's more on the story.
This is where Pakistan's economic promise collides with a long-running conflict. For days, coordinated attacks by Baloch separatists shut down cities, seized state buildings, and paralyzed Pakistan's largest province, Balochistan. Schools, banks, markets, and security installations were hit across the province, including in the capital Quetta. Pakistan's military says more than 200 militants were killed in a week-long operation, and separatists claim more than 300 Pakistani soldiers died, a figure that cannot be independently verified.
Pakistani army shot down 7 Indian warplanes, yet they can't control a single Baloch Liberation Army. What kind of situation is this? Since morning, there have been explosions, one after another. When we try to go to the hospital, the police point guns at us and say, "Go back, otherwise they will kill us."
The attacks were carried out by the Baloch Liberation Army, known as the BLA. It is a separatist group that's fought the Pakistani state for decades, seeking greater control over Balochistan's resources and ultimately independence. In recent years, the BLA has stepped up its operations, increasingly targeting state institutions and Chinese-linked projects. Islamabad says the attacks were too coordinated, too widespread, and too sophisticated to be local.
This terrorist incident is similar to other terrorist incidents that have occurred in Pakistan. Those behind it are the same, sponsored and supported by our neighbors, sponsored by India and supported by Afghanistan.
India has rejected the accusation, saying Islamabad should focus on long-standing political grievances inside Balochistan itself. Pakistan is rich in minerals, but that wealth is unevenly distributed, and much of it is concentrated here, Balochistan. The province sits at the center of Pakistan's economic outreach to China. Its biggest trading partner has invested billions in Balochistan, including the deep-sea port of Gwadar under the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. At the same time, Islamabad has been courting Washington. In 2025, it signed a $500 million memorandum with a US-based mining firm, followed days later by a minerals summit aimed at attracting foreign investors. Supporters of the insurgency say that contrast fuels the violence and argue that resources are extracted without political consent and without local benefit.
Joining me now is from Islamabad, Pakistan's Federal Minister for Information and Broadcasting, Mr. Ataullah Tarar. Minister Tarar, thank you very much for speaking with us. I want to begin by asking you an evaluation of the situation. I mean, these were among the largest coordinated attacks by the BLA in years. What does this tell you about the scale of this operation and the threat that the BLA currently poses?
By the grace of God, we have eliminated 129 terrorists of BLA. And it is now very clear that BLA is operating on the behest of funding from hostile elements which come across from our eastern border. And Fitna al Hindustan is directly funding the BLA terrorists because they do not believe in the constitution of Pakistan. They do not believe in law and order, and they are using weapons which they obtain through foreign sources to create unrest in Balochistan. The Balochistan province, a lot of development has taken place. We have the Gwadar port, which is a deep sea port. We have the Gwadar International Airport. We have mines and minerals. It is a rich province in which the government, the federal government and the provincial government, has done a lot of development. But unfortunately, the BLA, who are hardliners, who are extremists, and who promote suicide bombing, are creating a narrative of poverty, you know, uh, of misgovernance. But unfortunately, this narrative is not taking traction. The people have seen the BLA's true face because they martyred uh, laborers there. They martyred young children. They martyred women there. So, what kind of narrative are they promoting when they attack laborers, when they attack the common man? And they attacked 15 laborers and killed them. So, my
Okay.
point is
Hmm.
that the PLA is only resorting to violence because they only believe in violence. They do not have any rightful policy to justify their stance, and they just want to create unrest, and they have targeted innocent civilians, women and children in these operations. But our security forces were alert, our security forces were prepared, and they prevented a huge loss which could have happened had they not responded. So I think our security forces, our army has done exceedingly well
Yeah.
to neutralize more than 100 terrorists.
Mr. Minister, you said that these attacks are a result of violence that are coming across the border. It's very clear that your government is pointing the finger at Indian backing. I'd like to read to you, sir, a part of a statement that was released by the Ministry of External Affairs for India, the spokesperson. He said, instead of parroting frivolous claims each time there is a violent incident, it would be better to focus on addressing long-standing demands of its people in the region. This is what they're saying.
I think they better be concerned about their own issues rather than being concerned about our issues. Because as I said, even the Indian media has this frenzy regarding Balochistan. They like to talk about Balochistan a lot because they obviously want to create a narrative around Balochistan. We will not allow them to do that because the people of Balochistan, they are Pakistanis, they believe in the cause of Pakistan, they are very patriotic people. Unfortunately, the BLA, through foreign funding and through anti Pakistan elements, through hostile elements, they are trying to create a narrative of victimhood, which is not true. Thousands of kilometers of roads have been established. There are cadet colleges, there are universities, there are hospitals. A lot of development has taken place in Balochistan. So they should be, the eastern neighbor should be concerned about its own issues.
Yeah.
What is their obsession with Balochistan? And as I said, our security forces acted very professionally. And a few months back, the Jafar Express train hijacking, our security forces performed one of the best operations in the world.
Yeah.
With minimum damage, they were able to rescue hundreds of hostages. So I think we are well prepared to deal with the security situation, and the development issues are being sorted out. But the BLA has only one agenda: to create unrest. They have no legitimate demands and they have nothing. They are just terrorists who are very callous, and they want to take human lives and create a narrative around their own beliefs because they believe only in violence and in terrorism.
Mr. Minister, when you began assessing the situation a moment ago, you said 129 terrorists were neutralized, were killed. Islamabad's position is that the BLA is a UN-designated terrorist organization. Yet, the fact of the matter is, when you look at international media, time and time again, we see the BLA being referred to as a separatist group or a militant group or an extremist group. Why does this distinction matter so much for Pakistan? And perhaps more importantly, do you feel that Pakistan is perhaps losing the information war?
I don't believe so. When we had a war with India in May last year, we won the information war, we won the narrative war, and our narrative was bought by the entire world. And India and its lies were exposed badly. And the fact that we shot down 7 planes of the Indian Air Force is now an established fact, and the world acknowledges that Pakistan won the war and Pakistan won the information war. As far as BLA is concerned, yes, Indian media tries to create a lot of hype around it, but these people, the BLA terrorists, they are designated terrorists by the United Nations. They kill innocent women, children, innocent citizens. They resort to suicide bombing. They resort to violence. Any organization which has been designated as a terrorist organization and it kills innocent civilians is a terrorist organization by all standards and by all definition. So they are a terrorist group. They comprise of the most wanted terrorists, and they cannot be labeled with any other title, because someone who kills innocent civilians, who targets security forces, and who resorts to suicide bombing cannot be a legitimate group. So they are a terrorist group who only believe in terrorism, and their ideology is only terrorism, and they have no legitimacy at all, and they are out to create unrest, and we will not allow them. Our armed forces, under the leadership of Field Marshal Sayyid Asim Munir, Chief of Defense Forces, and the Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, are fully active and are fully prepared to eradicate the menace of terrorism. And we will, inshallah, by the grace of God, eliminate terrorism and terrorists in all their manifestations and forms.
Okay, Minister Tarar, with all due respect, critics of your position could say that military operations alone against what you're calling terrorist groups is not going to end the cycle of violence. It's not going to solve the fundamental problem. You said earlier in the conversation, we don't know what they want. Some would say that they want political inclusion. Some would say that they want perhaps maybe fairer access to the region's rich mineral wealth. Do you feel that there are any concrete steps that your government can take that can maybe benefit the local communities?
A lot of steps are being taken, and this narrative of victimhood is totally false. They don't want development. They just want to create unrest. And I'll give you an example. Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif did a lot of savings in the petroleum sector. When the prices of oil went down, petrol became cheap in Pakistan. Instead of transferring the benefit to the consumer, those savings were utilized to build a major road artery in Balochistan. And that Balochistan road connects two provinces. It goes towards Sindh. And billions of rupees have been spent. So a benefit that could have accrued to the citizens of entire Pakistan was utilized by the Prime Minister for the province of Balochistan. And with regard to mineral wealth, the province has a share. So the false narrative that they are trying to create cannot sustain, because they only want terrorism. They only want to create unrest, and they have no interest in the development. The Gwadar International Airport, with Chinese assistance, has been established. The Gwadar port has been established. Jobs are being created. Special economic zones are being made. Even the armed forces has created a lot of cadet colleges for education. So I think health sector, education sector, infrastructure, ports, airports, everything is being made. Balochistan is a province which has the most number of airports. So the BLA terrorists, they just want to create a perception, which we will not allow them. And we will keep telling the truth, because they have no interest in inclusion. They do not agree, or they do not accept the Constitution of Pakistan. And whoever doesn't accept the Constitution cannot be spoken to. And they are targeting civilians because they are trying to use them as bait. So intelligence-based operations in which we will find them, and intelligence-based operations based on credible information, we will not spare them at all. This is a loud and clear message, because they don't believe in the Constitution, they don't believe in the country, and they only believe in terrorist bombings, and they will be, inshallah, eradicated.
Minister Atullah Tarar, thank you very much for speaking to us here on the Newsmakers. Very much appreciate your perspective. All right, joining me now are from London, Senior Fellow in War Studies at King's College London, Aisha Siddiqa. Also in the British capital, General Secretary of the Baloch Advocacy and the Studies Centre, Kambar Malik. Welcome to the both of you. Aisha, let me begin with you. You've argued that Pakistan has tried this security approach for years now, if not decades. Why does it persist if it hasn't delivered lasting stability, you think?
Well, for two reasons. One is that very recently, I'm talking about 2022 in particular, we have a new military leadership which is insistent on turning Pakistan into a hard state, which means that very little, in fact, no political dialogue. It doesn't believe in this regime, military regime does not believe in political dialogue anywhere in Pakistan, and particularly in Balochistan, where it feels, the way it's projecting, that it's external enemies, Pakistan external enemies, that are making this, the insurgency happen. Of course, there is a different story. The other thing is that in Pakistan, the military has been so powerful for decades, years and decades. And its model of development, its model of territorial development, its model of political and economic development concentrates and focuses on concentration of power, concentration of wealth, domination of resources. And with Balochistan, the strategy is to dominate resources of Baloch territory and not genuinely engage with the people. It has failed to understand the change in the mood of the people. It has failed to understand that it's a new generation of people out there who are very frustrated with the Pakistani state and the establishment's behavior.
Okay. Kambar, I want to get you in the conversation. You heard Aisha in her comments. I want to get your thoughts on what she's saying, that there's no political dialogue, essentially since 2022. When you look at the economic development model of the region, it is essentially flawed. Your thoughts, sir?
I agree with Dr. Aisha Siddiqa, and as she accurately highlighted that the current state of the situation in Balochistan is the consequence of over 70 decades of Pakistan's criminal policies and actions in Balochistan. Now, I would also like to add that the violence, I would like to discuss the causes of violence in Balochistan. And that is because we usually see that quite conveniently the Pakistani authorities brand the armed resistance of Baloch as terrorist without discussing the causes of violence, which is simply like condemning someone to death without a fair trial, which is a common practice in Pakistan. Now, about the situation in Balochistan, it is that you would realize that the state, despite all its capabilities to engage the people of Balochistan, is bent on creating circumstances or conditions that not only gives birth to violence but also perpetuates it. And also where these conditions are where we have to see that Pakistan is, as we know, is a multi-ethnic country, where the dominant ethnic group, the Punjabis, in order to maintain their political and economic supremacy, have disregarded the cultural, linguistic, economic, and political development of the other ethnic groups, particularly the Baloch. And they are mercilessly exploiting the natural resources of Balochistan, which the Baloch people believe to be considered as their national wealth. Now, also, the dissent against these policies is contained through military means. And the ability of the Baloch people to participate or engage in the legal and political process of the state has also been contained. So when a people finding themselves in a situation where they cannot, or without legal or political process to remedy violations of their rights and dignity, do eventually resort to violence.
Aisha, I want to get you back in the conversation. I mean, from a security standpoint, when you look at the scale of the operations conducted by Pakistan, do you feel that it is effective at all? I mean, is it effective in terms of weakening the insurgency over all these years?
You know, the claims made, and now much more vociferously than before. The people who are running the province of Balochistan on behalf of Islamabad believe that they can silence the insurgency as has happened in other parts of South Asia. They give the reference of how Colombo, the Sri Lankan government, shut the insurgency, the Tamil Tigers, how they control them through use of force. A similar argument is given in case of, India and Kashmir. Now, the fact of the matter is that every situation has a different context, and what I see very clearly is that, for example, the recent attacks that happened in Balochistan, 37 attacks in one day, north, south, east, west, and the Pakistani military has suffered now, and they've been unable, despite their emphasis on security as their primary attention, they've not managed to put back the insurgents. Primarily, that this war is, it's kind of it reminds me of what happened in Vietnam, which is that when a military fought, we didn't have support of local people. We didn't have sympathy of the local people. So, but the Baloch are not sympathetic because they don't trust the way Pakistani state treats them. There is a issue of, forced abduction of people. Baloch are being abducted anywhere in the world, and anywhere in Pakistan, which creates a huge trust deficit, and this trust deficit is beneficial for the insurgents rather than bringing anything on the table for the state itself.
Okay. Kamar, Aisha brought up an interesting point. She said there have been forced abductions over the years. When you look at the situation in Balochistan, here is a common theme that I keep on coming across. Islamabad is saying that, look, we're not fighting, we're fighting terrorism, and we're not fighting the people of Balochistan. We're not fighting the Baloch people. How does that claim square up against things like enforced disappearances, what Aisha was just saying, forced abductions, collective punishment, political restrictions? The list goes on.
Well, then again, it takes us back to the Pakistan's narrative. I mean, there is a tendency among the Pakistani authorities to always look for external actors to blame for their domestic mess. And they usually frame discussions of Baloch nationalism within the narrow confines of Pakistan's hostile relations with its neighboring countries. And that is actually done to not only distort the legitimacy, but the organic character of the Baloch national struggle in Pakistan. So the enforced disappearances, extrajudicial killings, these are the major and most pressing human rights issues that the Baloch people face today in Pakistan. Whereas they say they are carrying, just quite recently, one of the former, or I don't know whether he's still serving minister Rana Sanaullah. During a conference in Lahore, he clearly mentioned that the supporters of the armed resistance movement have exhausted their human rights, and therefore they can be forcibly disappeared. And also, following these recent offensives by the Baloch Liberation Army in Balochistan, the current chief minister of Balochistan publicly said that he will pursue and make accountable the family members of those individuals who are involved in the armed resistance movement. And this is, usually Pakistan does this to neutralize its criminal actions in Balochistan, and also to neutralize the opposition that it faces, either from the different corners of the circles of Punjab or outside the world.
Kamar Malik and Aisha Siddiqa, thank you very much for joining us here on the Newsmakers. Enjoyed talking to you. And thank you for watching. Of course, you can follow us on social media and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. For now, I'm Ali Janayanash, and we'll see you next time.